Good morning, good afternoon, good evening. No matter where you're calling in from, we are glad to have you here today for the next edition of Music Business Common Ground webinar series. My name is Henrik Pick. I'm part of the communications team here at Music Biz, and I'm glad to welcome you to today's webinar. Before we introduce our presenters today, I just have a couple of quick housekeeping notes to help you make the most out of today's session. First and foremost, in order to network with all of your fellow attendees, you are going to use the webinar chat feature for that. And I do believe I need to update permissions. We are good to go. So you'll be able to chat with everybody who's on the call today in case you'd like to network or comment on today's presentation. The best place to do that is the chat feature. We will be also taking questions at the end of today's webinar. Best place to make sure your questions reach today's presenters is through the Q&A dashboard on your Zoom window. You'll click the Q&A button that will pop the dashboard up, and that will allow you to send your questions in, which we will answer at the end of the presentation today. Reminder that like all of our webinars, this will be recorded and posted to Music Business website by end of business today. You can access that two ways through our website, musicbiz.org. One is to navigate to the events tab at the very top of the screen, hover with your mouse and go to the event recording archive. Not only will that bring you to the recordings of our past webinars, but it will also take you to recordings of our other virtual events we've hosted throughout the past 6 years. If you want to look at just the Common Ground lineup over the last 6, 7, 8 years, you can go to Educate on the Music Biz website, hover over that, and then go to the Common Ground webinar series section from there. We'll also post these links in chat throughout the webinar, so that way you have easier access to them. Outside of today's event, a couple of housekeeping notes for our big in-person event coming up in just a few months. Music Biz 2026 will be happening once again at the Renaissance Atlanta Waverly from May 11th to the 14th. If you haven't seen it already, we launched our interactive agenda earlier this month. It'll allow you to check out everything we've confirmed so far for the 4 days of the conference. And in a couple of weeks, we'll be rolling out speaker announcements. So that will be the place that you'll see speakers as well. So that agenda, registration, and hotels are all available now. So if you'd like to start planning your trip early, visit musicbiz2026.com or musicbiz.org to access all those materials and more. While you're at our website, be sure to check out the 2 latest episodes of our Future of What podcast on the homepage. We've been pushing out about an episode a week at this point, and we're really proud of the output. Hope you all enjoy the content we have there. But enough about future-looking events. Let's look at today's presentation. Really glad to have the team from Bootleg here to present today, and I'd like to welcome Rod Yancy from Bootleg. Rod, take it away.
Let me unmute and start my video. There we go. Thank you, Henrik. I'm super excited to be here today. And I've got an incredible guest, somebody who's innovating in some really impressive ways, Miss Kyle McEvoy, Kyle with Cloverdale Records. And yeah, Kyle, why don't you give me your story, how you got into the industry, and also tell me what you're up to with Cloverdale.
Hell yeah. What's up, everybody? Great to meet you. Thanks for having me. Yeah, I started just myself as a musician, playing in bands and touring since I was 16. And right after college, kind of went through the music industry with my own music and, worked with a couple major labels and managers and had, kind of the cliche experience of getting thrown into the biz and experiencing a lot of crazy things. So, about 8 years ago, I decided to make my own label called Sonder House, just as a super simple option for like distribution for artists. And that kind of led me to working with, over the course of the last 8 years, I think it's almost 800 artists just distributing their music. And about 3 years ago is when I met an artist named Evan Honer, started managing him, and we kind of took that and took it to the next level and made a label together called Cloverdale Records, which is essentially a simple indie label that does just distribution, and then we also do management, admin, publishing, sync, and all sorts of things.
Yeah, you say it's simple, but we're here today to talk about artist-led business models and innovation. Cloverdale, from at least our perspective, is unique in a lot of ways and really progressive. So just looking around the corner, in the industry. It seems like you guys are really leaning into artist led. And, what do you think the difference is for Evan in working with you in Cloverdale as opposed to maybe going a traditional or a more traditional route?
Yeah. Yeah, I think the kind of last piece that I was missing when I was running my other label, was I never was big on social media or did it myself, and kind of understood that side of things. And Evan, I met when he was a senior in college, and he was, a perfect example of an artist just using social media, literally going from their bedroom to being able to sell out his first headline show ever to 300 people, like playing his first show. So I think I kind of saw like just how much weight that carries, and I also saw like over time a lot of things changing, just like Spotify editorials becoming less and less effective and more personalized and everything kind of turning into just algorithmic. Um, so yeah, I think my kind of big thing was just in a lot of ways just kind of thinking of like things that to the music industry seems normal, like getting paid quarterly by a record label or semi-annual. And then if you apply that to any other job, like, do you guys get paid, twice a year? No, you get paid every couple of weeks from your job, So that was kind of what really helped me just shape the label and be like, hey, like any partner we work with is going to pay our artists transparently, pay monthly. They're going to give us in-depth royalty analytics. Our artists are never going to have to ask us where the money is. It's always going to get paid out directly from our distributor, our sync partner, um, directly to the artist. So, that just a lot of things like that that I think may seem common to anyone outside of the industry, but we just have all these strange kind of rules we abide by in the industry.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you talked about transparency. You said a couple of things I think were super relevant. One is about how algorithmic things have gotten, and even social media has changed a lot. It sounds like when Evan was first on social media, it was probably a very different landscape. As we all know it, it's ever evolving.
Hmm.
Similarly, the music distribution and the way fans find music is ever evolving. Um, One thing we see at Bootleg is, it's almost like you don't know what's real and what's not real anymore.
Yep.
But one thing we do know is real is live music, at least until they get all these robots built they're talking about, right? There's a human in front of us on the stage. So talk about live and how that's important to I guess Evan and the rest of Cloverdale artists.
Hmm. Yeah, I mean, that was also something that starting off in my music journey, the first things I did was I ran to all ages venues in Connecticut. When I was like 15, I started booking shows, and by the time I was 18, I was a talent buyer, and I saw the logistics from that side of things. And I came from a very like DIY emo indie music scene where we'd ask $5 to $10 at the door and give all that money to the artist, and that was the deal essentially. So I saw like that and how it works, like trading off and bartering, and I didn't really come back to the live world until I had already been running a label for 10 years and got back on the management side. And then you kind of just see like how crazy everything is. Like I never thought like I'd be having artists tour around the world and getting tour buses in other countries and all that. And you see just kind of, I mean, how crazy it's gotten in terms of like a Live Nation venue and what they take, and they own all the food and the drinks, and you look at the expenses and you see a sold out show to thousands of people, and you're just like, there's no way there's this little
Mhm.
money getting paid to the artist. Um, and also the other side of it where it's like tour bus costs whatever, $100,000 a month, like things that fans don't really think about. And so my immediate kind of thing was like just trying to solve for that. Like, how do we offset these costs? Do it in a way that's not like your typical, hey, come take a photo with us for VIP and we'll make a couple $1,000s off fans that are super fans. Cause to me, that feels like a cheap way. Um, and I think being independent kind of lets us be able to do creative things to make the tour sustainable. And Bootleg for us just seemed like just such a great fit because it really didn't take too much else. It's like the band loves it. which is like the funniest part was we started and it seemed like the band was more into it before we even started really promoting it publicly. Like the band was like, this is amazing. Our sound guy records every night. We could go on the app and listen the next day and hear, whatever parts we screwed up or what we can make the live show better. And then Evan's band every week a tour was changing the set because they were all so dialed in. Um, and it's kind of one of those things where like we didn't even really think about the money side of it. And then we look back and we're like, oh wow, this did help offset some cost and like this money is really, really adding up. And then we heard all Evan's friends who are in major label deals be like, yeah, I don't know if we could do it, man. I'm signed to signed to this deal. And I think that's the coolest thing for us is like we could just kind of make our own decisions and really get it back 100% and be a part of it.
Yeah. Yeah, that independence, that true independence, I think, so many of us want to be able to make our decisions. Um, but it's hard if you don't have people that you trust and people that have the experience.
Yeah,
You and I know we're focusing on Evan, but you help a lot of artists, but you and Evan have a pretty unique relationship at Cloverdale, right? Like you are I mean, you started out as his manager, but now you guys are a little bit more like business partners, right? So
yeah, I would
talk,
say,
talk talk a little bit
oh,
about that because it seems like a cool an innovative way where and obviously you're not the only people in the industry who are doing this, but it does seem like it's unlocked some things for you guys from our perspective in the business decisions that you're making and how effective Evan's career trajectory appears to be.
for sure. Yeah, I mean, I think we kind of really quickly just realized, after the first talk I had with him, it was right at a kind of a crucial point in his career where a lot of his like other friends and artists in that world, like Wyatt Flores and Cameron Whitcomb, and all these artists were kind of all going viral together, and they were all signing deals. Um, and when I told Evan, kind of we connected it, and I just was like, hey, here's how I do things. I think it's going to be a little slower process, like you're not going to get the instant kind of glitz and glamour, but it's going to be a slow road and it's going to end up like you will make more this way. You'll be able to own everything, for the rest of your life. You could pass your master and publishing rights down to your kids, like if that's what you want and if you really bet on yourself, then let's go for it and let's just keep reassessing every 6 months.
Hmm.
Um, and from there, I think all this other stuff just kind of happened naturally because I had learned a lot myself as a musician going through the industry, and I had a lot of mentors who told me different things like, you know, you could always make some type of company or like a brand that's bigger than you. Which I think that made sense to Evan. He's just like, okay, if I don't want to be on the road forever, if I don't want to like live or die by my music, then like this Cloverdale thing seems like a cool way to help artists take other artists on tour, collab with them, and then like have something to sit back onto and develop a community. Um, and even things as far as like me and him went into some real estate together. Like I had music mentors tell me like the music industry, you can make $1 million one year and 40,000 the next. Like it is so up and down and just crazy. So even stuff like that, I'm like, hey, let's buy a house and make a studio. And now that's become a community hub of, every week there's a different artist recording at our studio in Nashville and our studio up here in Woodstock. Um, so at this point, we've kind of just gone in full just 360 on like things we could do together, and I think there's going to be a lot more down the line,
Yeah.
maybe a venue or a studio, and we do these big songwriting retreats where we have 30 artists come up here and just hang out in Woodstock and write songs. And I feel like doing those things where you're not like money is on the back burner. You're just like, who cares? Let's spend some money and get artists together. It's like I look back at our last songwriting camp, and if you look at those artists now, like they are all still on the label. They're selling thousands of tickets a night. Um,
Hmm.
and it's turned into a real thing for everybody.
Yeah. And a lot of fun along the way, right? Meeting a lot of people, like-minded folks.
So much fun.
Yeah, that's awesome. You said ownership, and ownership gets thrown around a lot. Um, what do you think like ownership means for a Cloverdale artist versus an artist in a more traditional deal?
Think without without saying any specific names, a part of my journey in the industry was I worked for different labels as an A&R, an independent A&R, and I was able to see the back end of those labels, and even kind of seeing that process, like I had to make a lot of decisions and just kind of like question my own, whatever you want to call it, business ethics and morals when it came to working with labels. Because first label I started at, they owned master and publishing for life, and it was a 50-50 deal. And we made artists a shit ton of money, but then I would look back in a couple of years and be like, damn, this sucks. Even me as an artist working with that label, I would get my statement and a song that went gold, and I would get, I saw the breakdown, 50% from the label, my collaborators taking 20%, me getting like a couple $100 a month from a song that's hundreds of millions of streams. Um, and then I worked at an indie label where they did more, they had big pockets. They would give artists money for back catalog deals and do 15 to 20-year license periods. And I was like, oh, they let you own your publishing. It's a 15-year exclusive license. Like that's way more artist friendly. And then you kind of realize like it's almost worse than than the other deal, in the sense of like it sounds friendly and they could spin it as like our artists own their master and publishing, like we're super artist friendly, but like they take 65% of everything. It's on the master side. They still have to approve everything. And like the way it breaks down is the same thing. Essentially, it's a bank loan. Um, and you get your royalty statements and like same thing. Songs I have hundreds of millions of streams on like in like negative $40,000 after 4 years. Like it doesn't make sense. So I think to me it's like it just makes so much sense to the way we do things. We work with STEM as a distributor and a couple other companies, and all of our stuff is non-exclusive. It's all handshake deals. The artist could cancel at any time. And um, I mean, it's just like we have a pretty incredible retention rate. You would think a label that does all handshake deals and doesn't have anything exclusive for any amount of time, artists would be leaving right and left. But I think it's a pretty just kind of common human feeling of like if you own something, you're getting paid monthly, and every month you're getting paid a lot of money, you're probably going to be happy and want to stay there.
Uh-huh.
So to me, it just is very intuitive to just say, hey, if you want to leave at any time, you can, and I'll always kind of run things that way.
Yeah. Well, and that transparency, I think, has a lot to do with it. I mean, it's a complicated system, publishing, master, royalties. You go to a venue and you play, and at the end of the night, you're trying to settle up. Everybody's tired. Everybody's trying to get to the next place. And, um, you know, you guys providing transparency seems like something that has got to be tremendously valuable for your artists.
Yeah.
That being said, are they taking more risk with your deal? Are they, at least do some of them perceive that? Like, are they, what's the downside? Everything has a pro and a con.
Yeah,
You know
yeah.
the industry well. So what do you think the realistic downside of your model is?
I would say the downside is that it does take a bit more self-belief and work ethic, and I guess the difference of like not I wouldn't even say a competitor, but the labels that we are constantly talking to in terms of like an artist is deciding between them and us, like is maybe a 30 Tigers or Big Loud or these Nashville labels that are established, they have tons of money, they have deals with the Orchard or AWOL. Um, and I think those labels and a lot of indie labels tend to almost work backwards from us, where like they sign an artist, they immediately throw a publicist on it, social media ads, whatever other ad spend. It's like, let's
Mhm.
go do a late night performance. And um, versus the way we do things is like there's almost no risk to start because it's like, hey, we typically take 5 to 15% of streaming revenue and that's it. The artist owns everything. So when we put out that first song, it just that's kind of where everything starts. And my advice to artists is like anything that a label could do, we could hire direct. So with Evan, we put out his stuff for a year straight, didn't have too much editorial success. Numbers were growing. We got to 1 million monthly listeners, then started seeing some big editorial success. By that time, when he started touring, that's when we were like, we should probably get a publicist, like,
Uh-huh.
and the beauty is it's like when you're doing things indie, it's like you're usually able to, I don't know, if a big major label or whatever is gonna hire somebody at Shorefire for 5, $6,000 a month, like we were able to find a great publicist for 1,500 a month who understood what we were doing and wanted to be a part of it, and same like with his last album, we had billboards and social media campaigns and UGC, campaigns and all that, and we were able just to have our distro shop that campaign to all these partners, come to us and say, here's 10 different people you could work with. Here's the budget. Here's what you're going to get in return. And we just were able to choose those partners and move forward directly, cutting out any middlemen or just inflated costs, which tends to be a huge thing when you're working with labels.
Yeah. So you can mitigate a lot of that risk. It does take a certain amount of, I guess, independence and, I mean, Evan is a true pioneer, so he believes in himself. So that's super cool. He also loves to play live.
Yep.
And, one thing at Bootleg that we see is, and I think we all know this, like live music is one of the best ways to cultivate a highly engaged and passionate audience.
Yep.
Evan does such a great job in the room, and he creates such a memorable moment. Um, of course, we think that there's opportunity, and you guys have shown there's opportunity to capture that moment and cultivate it um, with fans. How do you think about I guess, the shelf life of a live tour or of a live event, and using that to remarket and re-engage, maybe when you're coming back through town or maybe through socials?
Yeah, I mean, I always tell people I think it's kind of funny. A lot of our biggest viral artists like Jonah Kagan, Will Paquin, Evan were all D1 athletes in college, so they have that insane drive.
Hmm.
And I think that translates big time to their writing and recording, and then also their live show. Evan is a perfectionist, and it's just like kind of wild to see how his mind works. Like I've seen him come off stage where I'm like, oh man, I don't know if he's gonna be happy with that. And he's like, nailed it, crushed it. And then other times where I think it's a perfect set and he's like, dude, we missed this one thing, and it just like that bums him out. He never wants that to happen again. Um, and I think we approach stuff with him. It's been a different journey with other artists. It was like, let's get as many support slots for the first year or two, and then you could try headliners in big markets and start 200 cap listening rooms, And with Evan, his first show ever was at Mercury Lounge in New York City, sold out to like 250 people. Um, and our agent, Kylie Mosiman, she's at Wasserman. She works with like Chapel Roan and Bristol Maroney, Cigarettes After Sex, just artists that we really respected and saw their touring business, and we're like, that's where we want to be. Um, and she was very just great with like logistics and knew exactly what to do. It was like, let's start with a 3 week US tour and 300 cap rooms. And we did that. And then we went and hit secondary markets, and we kind of built up like each market over time. I would say over the course of 6 months, we would go back, return, um, do a bigger tour. And now it's kind of led to like this upcoming tour. He just was in UK and Europe, just went to all these like crazy markets for the last month and a half with Michael Marchese. Um,
Hmm.
and that was a good way for us to hit Portugal, Spain, all these markets we didn't, we wouldn't be able to hit alone without losing money. Um, just doing it in a way that was affordable and sustainable. And now he's going to come back in the US, and we're going to go back and do a big just major market tour. That's all 1,000 cap rooms and up. Um,
Uh-huh.
and our first time with like, bringing our own full front of house setup with monitors and LD and all those things.
Hmm.
Um, and I think, yeah, it's kind of this thing now where we need to be a little more strategic about touring. Like when you're trying to sell thousands of tickets and, do venues like the Fillmore and Webster Hall and all that. Like I feel like it's almost at this point now a disservice to go back to that direct market less than 10 months, So now we're at this point where we're like little less shows, more quality over quantity. We've done
Uh-huh.
the road dogging thing. Um, and let's find ways to like capture these shows, like great multicam videos, recording them, which is also something that was kind of crazy to us with the bootleg stuff was like when Simon broke it down, he's like, there's fans buying like shows, like they're in Oklahoma and they're buying, when he's in Dublin, Ireland playing a solo set, like which is cool because like for all transparency, like, we could go to Italy and get paid $500 to do an opening slot for whatever band, so like if we're able to sell 10 bootlegs and, whatever it is to offset the costs or just kind of have those shows, it just means so much more.
Yeah. Yeah, and it's such a way to cultivate everybody wants super fans. I mean, we've been talking about that. The industry's been talking about that for years. And certainly at Bootleg, we are seeing super fans buy whole tours. We are seeing super fans buy like shows that they can't get to, maybe overseas, etc. Um, but are superfans something that you're intentionally focusing on when you're circling back through? Are you using data that you're collecting to be able to sell tickets, to be able to inform fans, to be able to, release records?
Yeah, I mean it's definitely it's funny because I feel like when I first heard that word super fans, like it became kind of like a buzzword in the industry.
Yeah.
Um and now I feel like it's kind of like not lost its meaning, but it's just like what do you quantify as a super fan?
Uh-huh.
Um and I would say like for us, like I think of like a super fan as like someone who's willing to um engage. You know what I mean? Like when we have like Laylo or we use like Set Live to collect suggestions of like, hey, what songs do you want me to play on this tour? Like make your own dream set list. And like, we had thousands of people reach out and say, hey, I'd love for you to play these songs. And then they sign up for our Laylo. And like some of my favorite things is like, whether I'm with Evan or if I'm just going and checking, like I'll look at our Laylo and like there's fans texting him at 3 a.m. almost the same way they talk to ChatGPT, like texting, hey Evan, I just want to let you know, man, I'm going through a breakup right now and I'm laying in bed listening to the song and I'm just like I'm like, yo, Evan, go log on your Laylo right now. And he'll just talk to fans, be like, dude, I've been there. Thank you so much. Like that's why I do it. And to me, that's just like what I would quantify as like a super fan is the ones that are willing to, kind of do those things, whether it's signing up for your text blast or buy the signed vinyl or all those kind of fun things that we're able to do now.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, absolutely. And it's about, or at least what we see is collaboration. When you give a
yep,
fan the ability to participate in the moment or
yep,
participate in the work, um, obviously, I mean, Evan's the artist, but the artists that we love, we want to interact with, we want to be a part of.
yep,
And one thing we're seeing at Bootleg is just how much engagement there is with fans uploading photos, uploading videos into shows,
yep.
capturing that memory, and just the simple fact of them being able to show the artist that they were there, I think is part of it. But
Hmm.
also, it's being able to it's almost like being in the liner notes of
Yep,
an album in days past, to be able to be a part of that night. It's really, really super cool. Do you see, not to like keep talking about Evan so much, but talking about Cloverdale as a community, are your artists' fan bases crossing over? Are you seeing a lot of crossover with them being part of Cloverdale as a label? And how do you facilitate that?
for sure. We've been very intentional about that. Like at the end of the day, usually the final decision comes down to the artist. Which, as a manager, booking agent, it's like they all know the feeling of like, hey man, I'd love for you to, every agent is like, I got these 10 great other artists to take on tour.
Mhm.
So at the end of the day, I never force the artist to, to take on only Cloverdale artists on their tour. Um, but of course, like, we always suggest it and we've just seen it kind of work. Um, where like, we did this songwriting camp, all these people got together. Um, a handful of those artists we started managing. And then very organically, like, Winya, it was just like one of our kind of baby bands that when they started, they had 0 monthly listeners. We put out their first single. Um, Evan saw them in Nashville and was like, holy shit, Thomas's band is incredible. Like, this is insane. We need to take these guys on the road, you know?
Yeah.
And we did this big Cloverdale, like, multi-day fest where you guys came down and, that's when Simon was just like, this band Winnie is insane. You know, like we got to get them at the venue. Um, and so that was kind of a perfect example of like Evan took Winnie on tour. We had been rolling out singles every month, just getting their name out there. They were doing some support stuff. And then right as their album was coming out, they had just started posting the videos of them every day in front of their garage, just doing covers of songs. That
Uh-huh.
started just every video was going viral, getting millions of views. Then they're on tour with Evan, playing like venues like the Stone Pony and legendary Northeast venues where they're playing in front of 1,000 people a night. So literally
Mhm.
just like I had never seen that before, where like every single person that came for Evan was like, holy shit, this opening band is also amazing, you know? And
Right.
like they were able to go back to all those markets and sell them out. Um, and it was kind of just the perfect example of like we took this small artist, they wrote a bunch of cool songs with Evan, they got some cuts on his record, Evan took him on tour, all the fans loved it, went nuts. We just put out collabs that Evan did a deluxe album and we did a song with Flip Turn, who's like good friends of ours, and then Evan and Winya did a song. So that automatically took Winya from 500,000 monthlies to 700,000. Um, and now it's cool because Winya is able to do that same thing. You know, like they are able to go on tour and take smaller Cloverdale artists. Um, and it's cool just kind of seeing how that works, you know. And we've been able to kind of break one band after another, and it makes it way easier when it's like strength in numbers, you know.
Yeah.
Um, and the fans, like, I think that was the part that we were not prepared for when we did that kind of multi Cloverdale. It was like a fundraiser for the Nashville Humane Society, and we had 10 artists each day play like little half an hour sets.
Hmm.
Um, a lot of the fans that came were just like Cloverdale fans. You know, they were wearing our merch and asking every single artist for autographs and photos. And I think that's when we realized like, whoa, this is like growing into
Yeah.
something bigger than any individual artist, you know.
Yeah.
They're going to all these artist shows and listening to every single band and following the label to find new bands, which is cool, you know.
Yeah. Yeah, it's super cool. It's, true community, a community of artists, musicians. Um, you know, it's somewhat of an ethos. You're attracting the kind of artists who are independent, who are willing to bet on themselves, who are the type of people who like the idea of innovating.
Yep.
So yeah, super, super cool. You mentioned, and Winya is a great band. Yeah, incredible. We've started to, yeah, you talked about Simon. For those of you all listening, Simon's on the Bootleg team, not here today, but a big, big part of working with Kyle. Um, but Winya is, just kind of getting started out. And you mentioned covers. How important do you think covers have been for Cloverdale, and how much fun is it for artists to play a unique cover from time to time on tour, or even one a night?
Yeah. I mean that's like it's kind of crazy. The I guess there's like two sides of it. Like one is just like the lore of like,
Mhm.
you know, when Linger was going viral on TikTok and Evan started covering it over in Europe, we did a little our first tour there was like acoustic. Um Fans would take videos and Evan would repost them and people just started like begging for that song to come
Uh,
out. You know, they were just like, please release it or are you going to play it live? And it kind of became this special thing. Like then if he played it live, people would go nuts. Um, and it also allowed us to kind of do fun stuff like when he was in Vermont, you know, he did a Noah Kahn cover. And that went viral and Noah commented on it being like, oh my God, that's incredible, you know, and kind of put Evan on the map with him. So I think it's, you know, it's great. Like Winya did the same thing with a Jack Johnson song. I think it's that song Good People. They did a super upbeat, fun, like indie rock cover of it, and it just popped off on streaming. And those covers that they were doing online, like it was just great because it's like, you know, you're taking a song that millions of people know, and I think it helps people just familiarize themselves with a band where it's just like, oh shit, I know that song. Let me keep watching this video. These guys are cool. And then it
uh,
leads them to be like, let me check out their own music. and then they go to their Spotify and it's for the most part all originals, and they're like, damn, these guys rip, you know? Like it's so useful to get new fans and connect with those artists, you know. Um, so I always encourage it. And
Yeah.
yeah, it's a cool thing for sure.
It's a cool thing. It's a power of the song, it's a great way to honor the art that you love, and also to, attract the fan base. And, for an artist touring, let's say, 50, 100 shows a year, I know it's a bit of a road dog, as you said, it's a grind. What do you think changes if the artist is willing to lean in to having a professional recording done, that fans of the show can access? I mean, we've seen bands like King Gizzard, we've seen, famously a lot of the jam bands release often. How do you think fans react to that?
I mean, I think fans love it, and I think like I'm always amazed, even myself as a music listener, like I would say I'm obsessed with music. That's all I do.
Yeah.
Probably whatever, 12 hours a day, I'm just staring at my computer, uploading music, listening to it. And I think it's just interesting, like there's certain things like I love collecting vinyl, but I don't listen to tons of vinyl. I love the process behind it. I have been behind the scenes for a lot of it for artists, so I know the different pressing plans and the different variants, and like to me that's cool. But there's fans that like only listen to vinyl, and when Evan goes and makes an announcement that he has, special variant signed vinyl, different colors, like I'll see people, 500 people buy it in a day. And I'm just like, oh my God, and like same with the live shows. Like, I'm not a big jam band guy, so I've never been like, let me go listen to Fish at Madison Square Garden live for hours. And, like that's just not my vibe. And I'm in general, like I never was a big live like listening to live recordings.
Yeah.
Um, but it's kind of like funny to see that evolve, especially as I get older, like I'm only 30, 31, but I definitely don't go to as many shows as I used to. And the first thing I want to know when I'm checking out a band to work with is what they're like live.
Yeah.
Um, so I think that part of it is great, is like you could just go and get the full experience. And I'm sure it's only going to get more interactive and better quality and in depth, and with technology it's going to get crazier, like how close you could get to being there.
Yeah.
So for me, I think that's like the really interesting part, is just kind of getting the full experience and being able to hear like what it translates to live. And yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, similar, like, so I like all different genres of music, like I'm sure many music lovers do. So I won't say that I don't like jam, but that's not my origin, right? So I listened to a bunch of indie, growing up, a lot of Beatles, a lot of Bob Dylan, a lot of everything. And it was always hard to interact with a live album if I hadn't seen that band live. But something about being at the show and being able to, capture that moment, that memory, right? For fans who see a Cloverdale artist, um, isn't it cool that, when the artist wants to do it, the fan can take that moment home in some capacity. I mean, they're already trying to do it, right? Fans are like recording on their phones, or sometimes they have voice notes up. But how cool is it, that we have the technology nowadays for somebody to be able to collect that moment and play it conveniently, from their phone. So vinyl is great. I completely agree. I don't listen to it enough because I don't have it at the gym, or I don't have it in my car, right? I don't have it. Uh, I don't have it everywhere, but we do have our phones. So to be able to collect those live memories and those moments is pretty cool nowadays. Um, Closing up before we get to questions, what advice would you give an artist or manager who's thinking about building their own infrastructure instead of, I guess, uh, going through traditional models? Because you've done such an incredible job over the last few years of doing it. I'm sure it's very hard and there's a lot to learn, but what advice would you give?
Yeah, I would say if you're gonna go the independent route and kind of do everything yourself, like the biggest thing I tell artists is number one, you're gonna have to learn how to offset costs, like, and that might require also some difficult and just crazy decisions. I think my big turning point was like I was tour managing, I was just out of college. My own music started making like a couple $1,000s a month via streaming. Um, and I just saw that side of things and I was like, okay, all my friends are moving to New York City, LA, or Nashville. Um, and I just kind of looked at it and I was like, I make ambient music, like I don't need to be in a city. I don't sell merch. I don't go on tour. So I was like, found this little spot upstate and a couple hours north of the city. And I found at the time it was like a house for $400 a month. And then I found an entire studio space. It was like John Medeski from Medeski Martin and Wood,
Yeah.
speaking of gnarly jam bands and,
Yeah,
and crazy
great show.
players. It was his old studio. He was moving out. And same thing, it was $400 a month for this little cabin in the woods. Um,
I mean, after COVID,
and
that had to have skyrocketed.
so that was the thing is I originally moved up there and it's funny, I mean, I lived in at first before I found the place to live, I lived in that little cabin studio with no running water or bathroom. And I moved up there. Everyone thought I was losing my mind because I had just come off tour like Cage the Elephant and on, Mac DeMarco and all these cool artists. And now all of a sudden I'm like living in a studio with no bathroom and going to Planet Fitness to shower every day.
This is a
Um,
great origin story.
yeah, I was gonna say I don't know if I've
It's a
ever told this.
legend.
But I just saw that the future, like I was like, this is an amazing area. My, expenses are super cheap. And I got on like Peaceful Piano on Spotify at the time and was making like $6,000 a month from one song. And I was like, holy
Oh,
shit,
wow.
I could actually take this money and I invested in, some studio gear. I learned how to record myself. My first album was just me on guitar through a Space Echo through a little Focusrite interface. And that song, like that album to this day still makes me like $1,000+ a month. You know what I mean?
Wow.
Um, and I made a label, and the idea of my first label, Sonder House, was it was me, a graphic designer, and a mastering engineer because those were my biggest expenses. So I was like, hey, if you make album art for me and if you master my song and mix it or whatever, can I give you guys 5% each? And that'll be it. And we are all like, fuck it, let's see what happens. So that was the basis of the label was let's all take 5% each, put out my music, and then I'll start putting out other artists and let's offset all the costs. Um, and then as you grow, you know what I mean? You could take that money and put it into certain things and put it into things that you get some money back. And, but it took years and years of just keeping your head down and delaying gratification. So I would say that's the
Mhm.
biggest thing from the artist side is just delay the gratification. Don't take any quick deal. Don't like go into it thinking, I got to go into this huge studio and get the best producer. And, like you're going to have to be very self-sufficient and then on the manager side, I would just say the biggest thing I think is like so many people underestimate like true leverage. Um, I think a lot of people are like, oh man, my artist has a viral hit. They quantify anything as viral now. If it gets more than a million, a million views on TikTok, and then they go and get an offer from a major and anything over a couple $100,000 are like, we gotta go, we gotta strike while the iron is hot. And I think with Evan and all of our artists, we do a good job of just having those combos. It's great to meet you. Every major label, even if we're not going to work with them, at some point down the road, we will. Like when
Mhm.
Evan did his collabs with Cameron Whitcomb and Wyatt Flores and Charles Wesley Godwin and all these artists, like we had to go through all these labels to get permission to put it out independently.
Mhm.
Um, and we had to get their blessings for it and we built those relationships and even though we didn't sign with any of them they trusted us and Evan was so big that when an artist has 3 million monthly listeners like to them it's doing a disservice if their artist can't do that collab.
Mhm.
um so we in a nice way just said it, hey, if this song is going to come out we're going to put it out independently and they gave us those waivers. And now we are kind of at a point where the money that, Evan and a lot of our artists are making independently, when money is out of the equation, when you're making, hundreds of thousands to millions of dollars streaming just passively and you own your entire catalog, any of those offers seem just way less convincing, you know,
Hmm.
um, which has helped us just make smarter decisions. You know, like if you look at an offer and you're like, I don't know, a couple $1 million sounds good. It's like you step back, you look at the reality of it, and 3 years from now, it's probably not going to be that great of an offer. Um,
Uh-huh.
so I just tell people that I'm like, really get to the point where you cannot push it anymore till you're getting hundreds and hundreds of millions of streams a year, till you're selling thousands of tickets. And then if you want to partner with someone, you have enough leverage to get any deal you want. And I mean, the amount of like NDAs I've signed to to get offers from majors that people would look at and be like, holy shit, that's I've never seen that offer. You know,
Uh-huh.
it's cool to be in that place where, you know, we could go do something that an artist has never done before, you know. Um,
Yeah.
and we still haven't done anything yet. You know, we're sitting on a lot of cool stuff, and who knows, you know, if that'll change in the future. But yeah, for now it's just cool to be in that position.
Wow. Yeah. Super cool. From no running water and Planet Fitness shower to where you are. So, what a credit to you. What a cool entrepreneurial story. And
Thank you.
love you. I love what you said about delaying gratification because it really does, comes down to that a lot of times for any endeavor, artistic or otherwise. So, I think we are probably running up on time. Does that sound about right, Chris? Uh,
Yeah, we've got a couple questions in the chat if you guys can hang out for another 10 minutes or so.
yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. So this is from Michael Chow. What is your best advice on how to find indie labels that are more of a fit towards your niche? How do you stand out to those labels?
Yeah. I did, you know, early on, the thing that got me into solo music was there was a label called the Race Tapes who they worked with Oliver Arnolds and Nils Fromm. Um, a lot of these like, you know, whatever you want to call it, neoclassical or modern classical artists that were just doing solo piano records on like upright pianos with the felt on it. Um, and I mean, I just scoured like every artist I loved, what label they were on, and I'm sure I emailed that label, you know, 20 times when I was 20 years old. Um, and yeah, I mean, I just like that's kind of always what I go to. Or even if I hear an artist I love, like I'll Shazam the song and see who produced it and see who that producer works with. And I'm always kind of looking on the back end. Um, so I would say, yeah, just in terms of like finding the indie labels, like just look where your favorite artists are, and then from there, just reach out direct. Um, and I think just, I guess too, just being involved in like any sort of music scene, I think being like kind of in the Nashville world now, um, you realize how small it is. And at this point in the industry, how they're all connected, you know, like with the amount of acquisitions, it's like now downtown buying Fuga and, you know, all these different distributors, you kind of realize everything kind of leads back to a couple main sources. But yeah, I would always just say go to the artists and see what they're who they're working with.
Cool. We have a couple of people specifically asking how to get involved with Cloverdale.
Good
And
deal.
yeah, so maybe take that one up.
Yeah, for Cloverdale, just you could just email me directly and send me tunes whenever, or just on the Cloverdale Instagram. Um, you know, pretty much every artist we work with has just been a friend of a friend or just DMs us on Instagram and sends me music, and always happy to check stuff out.
Cool. And do all of your artists tour? And you guys are kind of spread out throughout the country, right?
Yeah, I would say so. Like between my other label, Sonderhouse, especially, we have artists in every country around the world. A lot of artists who just don't tour or anything. It's all, I would say 90% just kind of chill at home and make music and try to put out a song every month or two. Cloverdale is a little more focused in the Nashville world. Um, and I would say it's like 50-50. Like a lot of our artists are touring or starting to tour and do some one-offs. Um, but that's always kind of another one of my golden rules is like until you could go and sell a couple hundred tickets in major markets, like unless you just want to go do the DIY house show thing for fun, um, I'm always a big, you know, proponent of just not touring. Um, Mostly because I spent so many years not making money touring and playing the most insane places possible.
Totally. And then for both of you guys, want to see if you could just tell everyone, over the next 3 years, what does success look like for Bootleg and for Cloverdale? Is there a roadmap, or just kind of how do you guys measure success?
To me, I mean, I would say in terms of the bootleg stuff, just from a manager standpoint, success to me is like just exactly what we're doing now, you know. I think the coolest thing is it's still growing and I'm really excited how it goes on this tour. But I think to me, last tour, just hundreds and hundreds of people signing up and downloading live shows and, you know, being able for us to make a little extra money and um to have the fans just stoked about something and to have those shows like easily accessible whenever, to me that's a win. Um and then I think long-term success for artists is just, you know, cliche as it sounds, just being able to make a living, just doing what you love and then being able to help others and just do awesome shit with your friends, you know? Like I would never think in a million years like I'd be standing backstage at the Grand Ole Opry for Evan's debut and then like have one of his best friends, Liam St. John, do his debut a couple months later and we're all hanging out just like casual Wednesday, you know, let's go after to Dino's and get a burger after we just did the Opry. You know, like to me that's pretty surreal. I don't think it'll ever get old.
Yeah, that's
What about
awesome.
you, Rod?
Yeah, for us, I mean, I think, at Bootleg, what we're about is um, helping artists to to do their thing. Absolutely making sure that artists who want to tour can tour and can take care of a little extra cost, right? Because it is getting expensive. It's getting tough to be on the road. Um, and even more than that, it's about giving fans something incredible to remember each night about. These are, an artist touring, it can be the same thing every night for them, but for a fan who gets to see an artist that they love, maybe once a year, maybe every 5 years, for that fan to be able to participate in that show, to be able to take something home, to be able to remember that night, to be able to share it with their friends, at a party the next weekend, to be able to interact with that moment. It's about preserving those human moments where people are connecting. And so I think in the next 3 years, it's just finding innovative artists and people like Kyle in the industry who are willing to try something a little bit different and lean in. And yeah.
Yeah, and we should mention, I'm sure everyone will want to check out Evan Honer's music after this, check out Wenya's music. We're excited, as Rod mentioned, we're going to be bootlegging the Wenya tour that starts here next weekend, which we're excited about. And we've actually unlocked on the Bootleg app one of Evan Honer's shows that we recorded last year in Dublin, Ireland. I was fortunate to be at that show, and it's incredible. So, for people that want to check out Evan and want to check out Bootleg, you guys can download the Bootleg app. I dropped a link in the chat, and you can find that Dublin, Ireland show and listen to the full Bootleg and get a feel for what we're up to.
Oh yeah.
Did you
Um,
guys have anything else that you want to say to close this out?
I was just gonna say, yeah, I saw a couple in the chat, Dick and Matt. If you want to email, happy to go through any questions or the distro world. It's definitely overwhelming, so happy to answer any stuff like that. But no, I just want to say thank you, and this was dope. And I've gone to a bunch of these myself, just like music biz seminars. So cool to be on the other side.
Yeah, I just want to say thanks, Kyle. I mean, thanks for sharing. Incredible. Thanks for giving your wisdom and all the experience that you have that you've earned the hard way over the years with everybody on here. And yeah, thanks, Music Biz. This has been really fun. And yeah, anybody who needs anything, check us out, Instagram Bootleg or my LinkedIn. Yeah, reach out anytime you need me or email me. And if any question I can ever answer or any help I can give.
Oh yeah. Yeah, everyone go on Bootleg and check out some dope shows.
Yeah,
Download
check
the
out
app. It's
Evan.
cool. Yeah.
And from the music biz side, I just want to extend my thanks to Rod and Chris from the Bootleg team and to you, Kyle. Thank you all so much for joining us today, sharing your time and your expertise with us. Really exciting to hear about ways that we are supporting artists in this new emerging music economy. As I like to say, there would be no music industry without music, and there would be no music without the artists that are creating it. So everything we can do to uplift each other rises all ships. So thank you all so much for joining us today for today's webinar. Really appreciate having you all here. Look forward to welcoming you to the next one. And until then, have a great rest of your day.
Bye-bye.
Peace out, y'all.